I would like to now introduce the final panel of our Legislative Leadership Summit 2024 elections, the power of the AA and NHPI vote. You will hear from organizers in crucial battleground states about their efforts to combat mis- and disinformation, energize voters around down-ballot races, and engage AA and NHPI voters on the issues most important to them. The moderator for this panel is APAICS board member, thank you, Jean Lee. Jean is a partner in A&O Sherman's Global Projects, Energy, Natural Resources, and Infrastructure Group and co-leads the firm's agency finance practice in Washington. Now join me in welcoming Jean and our panelists to the stage.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for that very warm introduction and welcome. Again, I'm Jean Lee. I'm a partner with A&O Sherman, based here in DC, and I have been really looking forward to this panel discussion. Just based on, the prep calls that we've had leading up to this discussion, I know it's going to be jam-packed, full of really valuable information from all of our panelists. So. While I think it'll go by really quickly, I will do my best to make sure that we leave some time for you all for Q&A at the end. With that, let me introduce our esteemed panelists, starting with Christine Chen, who is Executive Director and co-founder of APIAVote. Next to her is Monka Donway, who is co-executive director of Freedom Inc. We have Wei Chen, who's Civic Engagement Director of Asian Americans United. And we have Touted Duong, who's Chief Policy and Government Affairs Officer of NAPOF. I think the very inspirational words we just heard from Senator Duckworth were a really good segue to this panel topic, which is the power of the Asian American NHPI vote. We heard that this particular demographic really made the difference in the Georgia election. And to me, that's quite, it's not just inspirational, but it does feel empowering, right? If you are part of a group that is the margin of victory for such a crucial election, it does inspire you and motivate you to keep it going, right? Keep that momentum going. Notwithstanding that we all know that there are certain challenges that we all face in terms of getting the vote out, making sure that momentum is sustained. And so I would like to start with Christine in terms of, the work that you're doing to really help people, get out there, continue feeling motivated, to vote. And some of the concrete things that you're seeing on the ground in terms of mobilizing the vote. Also, for each of you as you go, please feel free to introduce more about yourselves and your organizations.
Right. Great. Thank you, everyone. So for those of you who don't know, Asian and Pacific Islander American Vote is the nation's leading organization focusing on building political power by increasing voter participation and civic participation. We fund and resource and support AAPI nonprofits in over 29 states. So we were there 10, 12 years ago when no one was funding Nevada or paying attention to Georgia or Arizona or Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, right? So it's really what we're seeing in terms of the turnout and participation and the great work of our partners is because there have been investments and long-term diligent work year after year. So we're not here about once every 4 years or once every 2 years, but every single year there are important elections, also at the local level, right? And And also, just to give you some context, I'm just going to age myself. I've been here in DC for 3 decades now. And, you know, when APIAVote was first, the idea was first created, because in the 90s, we were seeing that our community was not voting at the same rate as Black, Latino, and other communities, right? And it was recognizing that even in 2000, when we started seeing the growth of these AANHPI organizations having a presence in DC, trying to do lobby and advocacy work or education work with our members of Congress and the federal agencies, we were just still not as powerful. So it was really in 2007 that we decided to really make sure that we were organizing staff and getting resource to be able to sustain and build out this infrastructure that we see now. And so really with APIAVote and our local partners, and you know, these two here are going to talk a little bit more about what that work really looks like. We're also really focusing on limited English proficient voters and first-time voters. So in 2020, over 21% of the API electorate were first-time voters. It was higher in Georgia and in Nevada at 25 and 26%, right? And so we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done to even just do basic education in language, whether it's through our translated mail or with additional touches and direct voter contact that we do to educate and empower them to be able to vote and also vote early. Because another trend that we see is that starting in 2022, 73% of our electorate voted early or by mail. But that's getting harder in places like Texas and Georgia, where they're making it harder to do that. So the role that we all play is even more crucial as we move forward in this 2024 election cycle.
Thanks very much for those insights, Christine. I know there may be you may be under some time constraints, so I might switch up the order a little bit and have you go next.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Tuet Young with NAPOF, the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum. And I see some founders here like Kai Ying and others. And so I am very excited to be with you all today. I'll age others too, but Kai Ying and others, you know, convened in 1995 at the Beijing Conference of Women and came back together here to form NAPOF, which is the nation's multi-issue national organization building and creating power with AANHPI women and girls. We have footprints in Illinois, Texas, Georgia, Florida. We fund strategic partners in Virginia and Texas. And this year, we're ready to fight on so many fronts. We, with our collaborative, in our own voice, Black Reproductive Justice Group, Latina Institute of Reproductive Justice, we released a poll we conducted together with Lake Research, polling 850 Black registered voters, 850 Latinx registered voters, and 850 ANHPI registered voters, all women, this year. And the issues that matter to us are not going to surprise you, but the story we're going to tell is really going to emphasize that elected leaders, candidates, policymakers would ignore kind of the nuances of our intersectional lives at their peril, right? We care about economic security. They came off as a very top level priority. We are found it most important for Congress to create good paying jobs and that everyone has access to affordable health care and more affordable housing options. Now, regarding reproductive health and abortion issues, we found it most important for Congress to address high rates of maternal death amongst women of color. Medication abortion is available to women no matter where they live and ensure access to birth control. We operate not just in the reproductive rights frame where it's just access to abortion. Women of color voters want more than that, right? They want access to health care. Before the Dobbs Supreme Court case came out, we were still struggling with access to health care and access to basic reproductive health care services, right? So reproductive justice is the belief that all women have the right to decide if, when, and how to become a parent and to nurture the children they have in a safe and healthy environment. And these are kind of our equities. A couple more things before I yield my time is that a majority of the women of color that we polled found that racism is prevalent and that it's unacceptable and that decision makers need to address it on all fronts in our systems. And so with regards to the upcoming fight we have to restore our rights regarding reproductive access and reproductive choices, this means that we're addressing long-term discrimination in the healthcare system and long-term discrimination with regards to reproductive access to healthcare. We will be launching a campaign this summer with Planned Parenthood, ACLU, National Women's Law Center, our Intersections of Our Lives Collaborative with In Our Own Voice and Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. We are in the steering committee and we are excited to partner with many partners in the ground and in the states to build the kind of world we wanted to see before and after Dobbs and really reimagine reproductive access and reproductive justice for all women, all persons who need access to reproductive choices. So I'm excited about the conversation we'll have about this year and holding people accountable before and after November.
Thank you very much, Touted. I will next move to Wei to introduce yourself and your organization, but also some of the initiatives that you are undertaking in this area.
Thank you so much for having me here. Wei Chen again here. Asian American United is the first nonprofit organization I work with. And this is an organization about 40 years old. And we are focused in leadership building and building community and fight against oppression. Which, the leadership building has been a significant part of the AAU operation in this moment. And I started as a youth organizer in AAU, and then we started a civic engagement group called Chinatown Vote, specifically helping targeting Chinese immigrant voters to register and educate them about importance of voting, and same time collaborating with other Asian American community to showing Asian American voting power, which we are proudly say APIAVote is the first organization that funding us to start our civic engaged work. And beyond that, let's give me a shout out to Christine. Thank you. Beyond that, I think the civic engaged funding is not just helping us to give an opportunity to educate our voter and educating about importance of voting. It's also a chance for us to funding our youth leader and educating them and telling the community leader. So we create a pipeline of leadership pipeline from the younger generation to the older generation and the collaboration between each other. I'm mostly proud to say that our youth, our volunteer who was helping the Civic Engagement Project now became our staff, which is very significant for us, and we see that work for us. And the Pennsylvania in 2020 was a very important year for us. It was a significant year for us. Beyond that, Pennsylvania was a swing state, right? Also, 2020 was census, remember, right? So the young people be able to use that relationship to connect with the older generation, the relationship that exists, to engage them to be encountered, right? So talk about the election in 2020. it was very significant, but it was very nervous because we know 2016's result is burning our communities and burning our leadership. A lot of people fell, and people left the war because the result. But 2020, we have a new strategy, which, we're going to push very hard about the language access, what Christine was talking about. National organization like APIAVote partner with the local organization, statewide Asian American organization to send out the in-language mailer with 16 different language. And we'll be able to use the funding from the, APIAVote to recruiting volunteer across Pennsylvania to making the call with the 16 different Asian language. That is very significant because nobody want to think about people talk about language access, we just translate the material and give it to them whatever they use or not. But if we think in different way, we use a different their whole language to approaching them, that will be very, very differently, right? So that became a very important winning strategy to winning Pennsylvania in 2020. And by the way, the 2020, census was a great result because we increased a huge population of Asian American there. And then Philadelphia became the first county in Pennsylvania to have a third language in the ballot, which, Chinese is the first time in the ballot. That was a huge celebration for us. So by the time, 2020 election was significant for us. Meanwhile, we do census, we do the civic engagement score, we get more opportunity to talk to people. Asian American population increased 11% in 2020 election. We're the highest ethnicity in Pennsylvania turnout to vote. Total was a 70% Asian American turnout to vote in 2020 general election. Nice. Because of the strategy, right? So I would say, more than that, it's really about how we build a collaboration. Asian American United, we're not taking the credit by ourselves because we're building a Pennsylvania-wide Asian American caucus or network. So continue to understand and continue working with each other and supporting each other, fundraising together. And then we share the resource with each other. Instead, we step into each other's toe. Those are the strategy is very significant to working together as an Asian and AAPI community.
Thank you, Wei. It's so great to hear about these concrete strategies that you've established in collaboration with other organizations, and then to actually see kind of the fruits of those efforts, the real impact, the positive impact in terms of mobilizing the vote. That's fantastic. I'll next turn it to Manka to introduce yourself and the work that you're doing with Freedom Inc.
Hi, everyone. I did not realize how bright these lights would be. I've been sitting here trying to listen to everybody, but I'm like, wow, this would be such good selfie light. Hi, everyone. My name is Manka. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm one of the co-executive directors at Freedom Inc. in Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you. I'm also the ED of our C4 project's Freedom Action. And I'm so happy to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for the invitation and the meaningful and timely conversation that we're having. A little bit more about me and my work and why I'm sitting here on a panel about Asian people voting. Well, I am actually the child of asylum seekers and refugees who fled the Second Liberian Civil War. People who know well about fleeing from genocide, about having their families and entire lineages wiped off of the face of the earth, and still taking a shot and having hope and coming to a whole new country and making a whole new different way for themselves. I think that's part of why, being resettled on the south side of Chicago and seeing also what Black people that have been here for generations have been going through from a young age. I understood that all over the world, Black people and colonized people are oppressed. And from a young age, I was like, what do we do about this? This cannot be it, right? And that works really well with what I do now at Freedom Inc. We're a Black and Southeast Asian organization. And so I work with people who understand deeply and are very impacted by genocide, like the American Secret War that happened in Southeast Asia, and have taught me to celebrate my culture while also looking for ways to fight and to change the future. And so it's because of them that I'm here. So shout out to my co-execs, Chai, our founder, APIAVote, and some of our really close allies and co-conspirators like Kai-Ying and Christine. You know, one thing that has really hit me as I'm sitting here is that, you know, I'm from Wisconsin, or I'm working Wisconsin now, and it's always called a swing state. And there's always, you know, our elections are not easy. There's a lot of struggle and strife and a lot to contend with. And even looking at what's happening nationally and internationally right now, it's easy to lose hope about our future. But one thing that gives me hope is when I see news stories about the staffers and the legislators that actually have been walking out and protesting a genocide that's happening in Palestine right now. And that gives me hope for our future. For those of us whose families experience genocide and have been re-traumatized watching this every day on the news and on social media, that gives me hope. So I just wanted to give y'all a shout out, you know, for the work that you're doing. I'm so happy and so inspired by you every day. Speaking about some of the challenges and opportunities, especially within the API NH community in Wisconsin, you know, the largest growing electorate in Wisconsin is the API community. The largest API demographic in Wisconsin is the Hmong community. And so that is a challenge because of things that have been mentioned today, like language access, like systemic racism, like xenophobia, right? Like anti-Asian hate, not only interpersonally, with Hmong farmers being hunted during hunting season, but also state violence, such as deportations and raids that these communities face. And so those are huge challenges to overcome, but again, I'm inspired, especially by the young people who make up the largest part of that electorate, who come into our office every week for weekly programming and say, hey, I saw this on the news, and here's what I think we should do about it. And as leadership, we say, okay, great. Here's the tools to organize. Here's the tools to go let your voice be heard. Here's the tools to go speak at the upcoming, you know, Senate hearing. Here's the tools to go and fight, and there's an election coming up. You know, like this is another opportunity to build the world that we want to see, and we've really had success engaging at that level. Like, hey, these are the things that you all care about and you're really passionate about it, and we hear you and we see you. This is another strategy to create the winning conditions to actually have power to make a change. And so those are some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that we're seeing within our community, within the state of Wisconsin. And again, like, my main takeaway from this has been, in the face of great heartbreak and fear, a lot of folks are fearful right now, to really lean into the hope and to get inspired by something. By something. Talk to your grandma. See how they made it through, because they made it through a lot of stuff, right? We're not the first ones, and we won't be the last ones. But what we do now, a lot of people are looking at. And so that's what I try to hold on to. And yeah, like really engaging, that youth engagement is so important. You all as future leaders of this country, lean into your heart, lead into what brought your people here and what made them successful here. Like Senator Duckworth was saying earlier, if the advice coming from the white folks don't make sense, don't follow it. You know, yeah, you know what has brought your family stability and thriving in the face of great oppression. Keep doing that, and that's what we're gonna keep doing at FI as well.
Thank you so much, Manka. And to take your own words, I don't think I'm the only one in this room who's finding inspiration in you, so thank you. Wei, if I can bring it back to you, you mentioned that, you know, in 2020, Pennsylvania was a swing state, with the A and HPI population being the fastest growing demographic in many swing states. How how do you see their voting power influencing the outcome of down ballot races?
I think that we need to back up a little bit and when we talk about AAPI community, and HPI community, they're fast growing, and it's our responsibility as a grassroots organization that we invest more to understand about our community. It's true that we do not know about each other. As an East Asian, I need to learn more about the history of a Southeast Asian and South Asian and HBI community. That is most important for us, for long term or short term, to understand about each other in order to build a strong collaboration to support each other turn out to vote, right? So what we did in a couple of years ago, we did a statewide survey, and after surveys being conducted and being concluded, we also do a listening campaign, giving community feedback, a chance to feedback to us about the result, and that we will be engaged deeply about community, how to exercise our power, and also invest our future leadership for long term is very important to how we maintain a swing state, stabilize. Beyond that, funding coming to the local organization, right? We also have to spend a lot of time to do political education, a deeper political education, right? To helping our younger generation do same thing what older generation do, helping, push each other, right? So get out to vote is just just one of our strategy, and we have to win, and we have to show our younger generation the hope of the electoral power.
Another point I just want to focus on down ballot is that, yes, our population has grown. Our citizen voting age population has grown, but we still have a lot more work to do around voter registration. But the impact, we're already seeing that, not only at the presidential level, but ever since we've been investing in Georgia and they've been activating every single year, now they have more, they actually are catching up to California in terms of the number of API state legislators, right? Nevada is at 7, Minnesota is at 10, right? And so we're seeing these numbers where people were not thinking that there would be API leadership at the state legislative level. Same thing with, even in Philadelphia, Helen Gim was executive director of Asian American United. Because her passion was around education issues, she later on decided to run for city council and became elected as the first Asian American woman to run and win her election in Philadelphia. Same thing with Stephanie Chang, who was the founder of APIAVote Michigan, because she learned the basics about how to talk to voters and how to go door knocking. She was then identified and asked to consider running for state rep for Michigan. And then later on, she became a state senator, and now she's part of the leadership, right? So by increasing voter participation, we're also opening and developing this pipeline of those that could essentially run for office and also be be appointed for different boards and commissions.
I knew this would happen. I didn't get through all the questions, but I do want to give the audience a chance to ask some questions of all of you. But before that, final question from me is for each of the panelists, what advice do you have for AA and HPI voters who may be undecided or apathetic about participating in the electoral process? And how can we encourage greater civic engagement and voter turnout?
Okay. Christine said I should take it, so I'm going to take it. Okay, so I would say I'm not one to bullshit. I know that the top of the ballot is based on conversations with voters on the doors and at community events. It's not looking appealing to a lot of people. And what we've done is, again, do a lot of retrospection and reflecting, but in talking to a lot of leaders at different galleries across the country, is actually connect with people and understand, yeah, we're all heartbroken and at a loss for words at what we're seeing playing out every day on social media, on the news. And I think the root of that heartbreak is that we are realizing that we don't have the type of power that translates into being able to stop something like this. And so how we've been engaging with voters is pulling them in on local issues that they really care about, such as childcare, such as housing, and saying, hey, like if we want to create the conditions to win, what type of administration does that look like? Where can we have open meetings and discuss these things and build strategy together and door knock freely? We already face violence when we go out and do direct voter contact. What would it look like under a different type of administration? And so we have to have these frank conversations and talk about the fact that the conservatives have been working their 35-year plan for the past 35 years, and we're seeing it come to fruition. And we also have to have a 35-year plan and a 50-year plan. And that hurts sometimes. It doesn't always look fun and happy. We're not always gonna get what we want in the moment, but it does not mean that we stop trying. Because 35 years from now, my son is gonna be 37, and he's gonna have his own family, and he's gonna want to live a happy and free and thriving life. And I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can today to make that happen. And that has been something that we have been running with, like when we're talking to voters, and it's something that's really resonating and landing, especially again amongst like Southeast Asian populations that had to make a sacrifice 30 years ago for their families to be thriving now. So yeah, that's the way that we've engaged voters around that.
I just, I'm gonna go Christine and age myself. I started this work in Texas 20 years ago. I've been a federal servant in two, we call it hostile administrations, and I served in the Obama administration, and now I work in it as an advocate. And so in terms of two things, categories of things. One category of things we cannot forget. We cannot forget how bad it was. We cannot forget NSEERS and that it was there and that we were banning Muslims to enter the country. We cannot forget racial profiling from our government. We cannot forget those of us who were in the Department of Justice during the Trump administration and our words on human rights were being monitored. We cannot forget those things. And we got to remind the folks that are angry now. I just came from the State Department, okay? We left the country. We served in the State Department. It is hard. Foreign policy is really, really, really hard. There are people working 24 hours around the clock to strike a peace deal, okay? But we have got to be in this together. And we can't forget how bad it was. We just can't. And we can't, the second bucket of things, we gotta celebrate. Okay, I am not a mouthpiece with any agenda except for the community. Those of you who have worked with me for a long time, you know this. We in terms of women's rights and women's health research, this administration is doing things that we couldn't do before. There's unprecedented investment into women's health that's going to happen. I mean, yes, we're going to have to advocate for those dollars to reach our community. We just had a regulation to Section 1557. I mean, those of you that have worked on Title VI for the Civil Rights Act, have we seen such a thing that impacts language access in over 20, 30 years? No, we have not. This is stronger on the health front for civil rights and language access. People aren't talking about it enough, and we aren't protecting it, and I am throwing my body across 1557, and the way I do it is by voting. Our polling showed that women are motivated to vote, and they see voting as a way to make change, and we've just got to articulate what that change is and what we don't want to these voters, okay? And so DACA, we barely got it through, and the condition for immigrants isn't great, but it could be so much worse, you all. It could be so much worse, okay? I served in the Homeland Security during both administrations, okay? I saw the difference between people who want to eliminate us and people who are willing to try. And there's a huge difference. So, yes, thank you. So, Anyway, really aged myself. But yes, those two categories, remember where we were and remember where we are right now, and remember where we need to stay at least, and remember where we need to go. And those are the things we need to communicate to our voters. And making policy, changing policy is really hard. Our data equity policy just hadn't been changed in 1997. We just made some changes. They were modest, but data equity is the #1 civil rights issue for our community, and they finally managed to make some changes out of the Office of Management and Budget. So again, and we're not talking about it, it's only the nerds talking about it, but we got to nerd it out at the ballot, at the doors, and just the nerds need to connect with the field and the voters. That's probably why I'm stuck on this. I'm on this panel, you know, with everybody, the nerd. But we've got to remember, and we've got to see where we can be. So thank you so much.
So let me translate the nerd and the policy nerds here, right? And us all being in DC. So in some shape or form, you probably are a policy nerd because you are here, right? But what I need you to do is go back to your family and friends. I've always said this time and time again. You all have the power. You have your own networks of family and friends, and they all have various degrees of understanding what is at stake with this election, how to even cast their ballot, or are they even motivated? Sometimes these conversations are going to be really hard and difficult. But you also have to remember, many of them are on platforms. They're on WeChat, Kakao, WhatsApp, Line. They're getting information that may be mis and disinformation. And it's up to you to who you have that personal relationship. You're going to have a better chance of having thoughtful conversations, as difficult as it may be, to challenge some of the things that they may be seeing and reading, making sure that they have the correct information, and ensuring that they have as much information and support before they cast their ballot, right? And so I really want to press upon each and every one of you to think seriously about adopting a number of your family and friends and being really conservative about taking it from now until November, because there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. There's going to be a lot of mis and disinformation, and a lot of decisions are being made and need to be thought out. But you, as a trusted messenger, has the best opportunity to make sure that they're able to cast their ballot and done in a thoughtful way.
Thank you.
I strongly agree with all three of them. That's the most easier way. But I just want to add to it, this is not just about just one voting. This is about creating a resilient culture to showing our next generation how to fight back, how to resist. Because often the society is telling that Asian people are quiet, and we are not. And we're going to use that vote to showing that we're together and we're not quiet, and we're going to fight back.
Thank you all. We have a few minutes left for Q&A, so I'll open it up to the audience.
On again, you may have heard the famous quote, "Nerds will inherit the earth." With that, I know that, Christine, you're very shy and unopinionated. I'm surprised that you haven't shared what, yesterday afternoon the entertainment panel shared, that we need to be out there voting. I know there's an event in July that most people know. Would you share with us what's going on? I know some of our friends at JCL and OCA are here, so please.
Okay, so your next action, I know that we love celebrating here in May, but I would love to invite all of you to come to Philadelphia, PA from July 11th through the 13th. There are a number of different conventions and conferences, including OCA, JCL. APAICS is having their National Academy, training the up-and-coming elected officials. APIAVote is also having a National API Leadership Summit, where we're working with a number of different national organizations to essentially host free workshops and plenaries to get everyone ready for this election cycle. But it will culminate on Saturday with a presidential town hall at the Philadelphia Convention Center, where we are building a crowd of 1,800 community leaders leaders, young and old, from all the different 29 states, including the battleground states. We've invited the political nominees to come and address the community. Think of this as when nominees go to the NAACP or the Human Rights Campaign or UNIDOS's conventions. This is a space that we're creating for the nominees to address the concerns of our community. So this is a convening and town hall that we do once every 4 years. It's free. Just go to APIAVote.org/town hall and come join us.
Thanks very much, Christine, and thank you for the awesome suggestions. Because of our limited time, to the extent that there are other questions, we'll just take a few at the same time and then have our panelists answer as many as they can.
I'm Allegra Tasaki, Nisei on my father's side. And, you know, when I leave this conference, I'm taking my daughter to go vote. We've already completed our sample ballots, and we went through an education process because I don't want them voting for candidates that they don't know anything about. So we were lucky to have a great resource, the League of Women Voters voting guide. But I also had them take a look at some of the bullet points that I pulled from Project 25, because it's also about understanding what the other agenda is and what we are thinking about as we move forward and the people that we want to support. So I would love to hear from you your thoughts on how to address that, because I've said Project 25, my 18-year-old and 20-year-old didn't know what it was. And that was a whole family discussion.
Any other questions? Okay, why don't we take one more and then.
Hi, Eric Lechik of the U.S. Filipinos for Good Governance. I just want to follow up Christine's suggestion. Is there an organized Asian-Pacific campaign to deal with disinformation, especially in light of Cambridge Analytica? And some of the consultants, unfortunately, were so-called progressives. And they have, as you know, identified a matrix of how people vote. Has that been addressed, or will there be an educational campaign to train our progressive members of our community?
Oh, go ahead. It works.
Quick. So the first time that I was eligible to vote, because I was of age, was the 2020 Georgia Senate election. That was also the first time that my parents were eligible to vote because they just gotten their citizenship finally. So voting has always meant a lot. As a young voter, this upcoming fall election is heavy for many reasons that have already been mentioned. And I think there's a tendency to kind of dismiss, well, if you don't vote, you're not participating. But what happens when voting feels immoral in some cases? And I want to ask you guys what you feel about, how do you feel about the uncommitted movement that has been popping up amongst young voters?
You guys want to take some of it?
I can talk about, okay. Well, the C4 orgs do a great job of articulating what 2025 is. I mean, the 2025 project, and there are many working groups in town preparing for it, unfortunately. And for those of you who don't know, it's a couple thousand pages of all the bad things they want to do. They want to eliminate LGBTQIA from every government document and rule, for instance. They want to roll back reproductive rights even more. They want to enact a federal ban on abortion. 2,000 pages of this, and so we are preparing for it. But I think the C4 organizations will hopefully really invest in articulating the difference between what 2025 is and what many organizations are trying to do in terms of human rights and civil rights. And there are many of those in town that are trying to prepare, but also affirmatively push. And it's a tricky thing to do when we're under-resourced and there's a lot of information floating around about different things. And so, again, I do think it is a study document. It's loathsome, and you should drink it with a glass of bourbon, but it is very critical education, political education point, and I do agree with this as required reading for folks who want to really understand deeply the world that they are imagining.
So for those of you who don't know, Google Heritage Foundation Project 2025, and it is true. It's a huge document that is very disconcerting because if you believe in a lot of the civil rights that we are benefiting from, a lot of it is being proposed to be eliminated.
Yeah, and what I will say as well, I was one of the, and this connects to the vote uncommitted question as well. I was one of those youth. I've been doing candidate campaign work since I was 16. Started off, cut my teeth in the 10th congressional district in Illinois, so very competitive district. After a little while of doing that, I was like, wait, why does it seem like I keep sacrificing myself and showing up, but nothing is changing? And so I will say we need to vote now for the same reason why there's a Project 2025 document out. They've done the organizing and the strategy and put in the years to be able to implement something like that. So I will say, like, and this is different, like, than all the times I asked why hasn't anything changed, and people said, well, just keep showing up. This is the election of your life. If you don't show up, like, horrible things are gonna happen. I think the right is actually positioned to actually make those horrible things happen in 2025, and so that's one reason to show up. Another thing is, like, RC4 actually, like, helped with the vote uninstructed effort in Wisconsin, and were able to double the margin of victory that Biden had in 2020. And we ran it, we supported it because the first Asian American legislature in Wisconsin came to us and said, we are not running this as a protest, we're running this as an accountability campaign. We're running this to say, hey, this is what your voters care about, and this is what is really impacting us. And unless we see a shift in policy and a call for ceasefire immediately and lasting, that we're not gonna show up in November, right? And really I saw it as like, hey, you know, this is our opportunity to meet people where they are, just like I was that young 16-year-old saying, why isn't anything changing? And really didn't have anyone listen to me or my perspective or my strategy. This is our opportunity to say, hey, we hear you, we see you, we wanna listen to your strategy. Let's not do like we did in 2016 and ignore what young people were saying, right? And their strategy contributions, like, let's actually hear what you have to say. And to me, it's like about putting trust and faith in, like, opening arms so that everyone can participate, and that it's not just like us in leadership and people behind closed doors, like, calling all the shots. And so that's what I'll say to that. And I think that's something that we have to do, that we have to shift and open up the doors and allow people in, especially young people, to tell us how they're feeling and to say, this is how what I think our way forward is.
With that, I'd like to thank all of our panelists. I know that we're over time, and thank you all for your engagement. I know that, you know, I personally have learned so much from all of you, and we really appreciate, you know, your time on the panel today, but more broadly, the very impactful work that you're all doing for our community. So thank you all.
Thank you to Jean and our panelists for such an important discussion. I would like to now introduce APAICS board member Joanna Dean for closing remarks. Joanna is Group Vice President of Sales at Toyota Financial Services, where she is responsible for all sales activities for the organization. Please join me in welcoming Joanna Dean to the stage.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Such a fun-filled and interesting discussion this afternoon. Hello again, Joanna Dean, Group Vice President for Toyota. Now, Toyota has been a proud sponsor of APEX for over 10 years. And for Toyota and for us, it is not just a corporate strategy. It is the foundation upon which our company is built. In fact, earlier this morning, we are very proud to announce that Fair 360 and Diversity Inc. actually ranked Toyota as one of the top 50 companies for diversity and inclusion. We have remained number 4 for the last 3 years. So for us, we really believe in the importance in representation. Yes, it is the right thing to do, but also there are economic and financial benefits for being diverse, diversity in perspective, diversity in thought. And so our hope is that this will spill over into the legislative arena. We hope that this valuable experience that you've experienced over the last couple days will really inspire our young people to look at careers in public policy, whether it's local, state, or federal. We do this because civic participation and representation are key to advance our shared community. Now, as the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities continue to grow, like we've heard today, the voting power that we have collectively has become even more visible. But we can only achieve this if the community members get actively engaged. And so I would like to thank Madeline and the entire APEX organization for putting on such an important conference and summit. We hope that, round of applause for APEX. There's been a lot of discussion of what is your duty, what is my duty, what is our duty, and that is to go back to our communities and to inspire and to engage. Because yes, it is the right thing to do, but we do need to see more active participation in those who are forming our policies and our laws that affect our community and our society. So that at the end of the day, we hope you return inspired and enriched from this summit. So many issues were discussed, and on behalf of Toyota, I want to thank each of you for sharing your knowledge and expertise at this summit. Thank you, and hope to see you all next year.
All right, what a great event we've had together. Over the past 2 days, we've heard from Vice President Kamala Harris, several members of Congress, including KPAC Chair Judy Chu, Senator Tammy Duckworth, and the honorary co-chairs of the Legislative Leadership Summit, Representatives Doris Matsui and Pramila Jayapal. We've heard from a lieutenant governor, mayors, state legislators, and many other amazing AA and NHPI leaders from across the country. Thank you to our panelists, moderators, and special guest speakers for sharing their expertise and insightful perspectives. We greatly appreciate our presenting partners, Amazon and Johnson, and all of our event partners. I also want to thank the APAC staff, and especially my external affairs team. Let's give them a round of applause for their hard work this week, and thank you all for joining us. To get more involved with APAICS, check out our National Leadership Academy and Women's Collective Summit happening this summer. Please visit apaics.org to learn more about our work, and see you back here next year. Thank you.